Hello and welcome to Confessionals and Congressionals. My name is Lauren,
I'm Cassie.
and today's our politics and current events episode. Although we have a little bit of pop culture on the menu, so it's really going to be sort of a half and half episode.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I think I'm not going to go too deep into it, but yeah, I do. I just want to, I'm more interested in the Reddit versus TikTok.
Okay, yeah, so we're going to have sort of a meta conversation about social media and culture around social media. We're going to talk about the Iran conflict that's going on and the updates that have happened in the last couple of days. Today is Sunday, June 22nd. And we've got some Mahmoud Khalil updates. Karen Reed trial, found not guilty for manslaughter. That's huge. I listened to a little bit of an interview this morning with her lawyers, I think, and I'll talk about that too, because I know you have some updates. Vance Boelter updates, the assassin who killed, I hate to even call him an assassin, but I guess that's what he is. I feel like that is such a,
No, no, that is absolutely the right word. Keep using it because that is the word that the right doesn't want you to use.
really.
They just want to go with mass murder. They don't want to talk about the fact that this is an assassination of elected officials. So,
Yeah.
yeah, use that word all the time. That's what it was.
Okay, yeah, I guess so. I think that the word assassin gives too much glory to him, but maybe it's not about him.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll get there. We'll get there. Go
Yeah.
ahead. What else?
We're also going to talk about Scott Wolf and Kelly Wolf divorce. And this is kind of the TikTok versus Reddit. And really, just like every social media platform just has a different demo that serves the content. And when you get on Facebook and see the comments about things where you've been on Reddit or TikTok for, and you see what people are saying and who they're siding with, you're like, oh, I guess the old people are siding with him. Got it. Got it.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
And then we're going to talk about the Iran conflict, and then I guess whatever else happens to pop off out of our mouths. If you're new here, this is a pop culture, current events, politics podcast. We do 2 episodes a week. One that's pop culture centric, and right now we're recapping the Valley and talking about other pop culture updates, and then one that is more politics centric, but we mix and match a little bit of each. We hope you come for the pop culture and stay for the politics.
Yeah. So how was your week, Lauren?
Pass. I've been down for the count for the last few days. I'm finally feeling better today. I am trying new ADHD meds, so I'm weaning off of the ones I've been on. All of my love and sympathies go to anyone who's had to experiment with different kind of medications. It freaking sucks. And obviously, you're hoping that one of them will work well enough. But this is why we get people that have, like, not to go off on a tangent already, and we're only like 3 minutes in, but like people with treatment-resistant depression. Treatment-resistant depression is considered trying 3 antidepressants and none of them working, and it's like those people then just live the rest of their lives with the depression. And of course, there's a lot of things going on underneath the surface there. And whenever I treat people with like treatment resistant depression, there's almost always like really intense childhood trauma. But still, it sucks to experiment with medicine. And I don't blame people for not wanting to do it. So, anyway, I am on a journey of finding a new ADHD medicine that can actually help me remember things.
Many years ago, I went on an antidepressant, and then this was probably 17 years ago. And that night I got hives all over my entire body. I'll never forget like rubbing my toes on the carpet, trying so badly to stop the itch. Like they were everywhere.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so I had to go to urgent care, and that was the only thing I had done differently was the medication. And I remember when I went back to my doctor, she was like, the problem is that so many of the antidepressants have similar ingredients, and it's very hard for us to figure out which one you were allergic to in it. And so if we try a different one, it could be
Oh,
hit or miss with whether or not this one gives you hives as well. And I just never tried again because it was just such a miserable experience.
yeah, I know. And combine that with the fact that a lot of times people don't feel heard by their providers in general. And the fact that like psychiatrist appointments are expensive and people probably don't want to have to set them up. Plus the fact that a lot of people don't have insurance and maybe the medicine is expensive to begin with. So testing it out is something that people don't want to really try because it's just like there's so many layers and to why people don't follow through to find a medicine that works. Not to mention there's a lot of skepticism around taking a medicine every day. And I felt more opposed to medicine before I went to school to become a therapist than I do now, which might be like what is the word, like against what people would think, because I went to school to learn how to treat things without medicine. But I think that it actually convinced me how helpful medicine can be to help people get better, because you kind of have to hit a baseline in order to start to get better and like have any motivation to feel better. And like
My
getting somebody to a baseline that's like functioning is really essential to helping them figure out what's going on.
Yeah, my son and I were just having like a deep dive conversation about this because he's at this age where he can have these conversations. It's amazing. And, so we were just talking, like, he's so insightful. Maybe
He's
just because
7.
do
He's
not,
7 now.
do not. He's about to be a junior in high school. And it started because he really always loved Elon Musk. And this is, I think, just goes back to like his fascination with rockets. Like he knows the names and the parts and all the things they do, like, mind blowing stuff. And then music wise, he always loved Kanye. And
Yeah.
so we were talking about both of them and just got into this conversation about, if you have a personality disorder, it can be so much harder to treat. And I don't understand why these people that have something like bipolar don't just stay on their medication, because can't they see that they're ruining their lives? And it was just interesting. And I was telling him like how often I've read stories about people that get on these medications for bipolar or something like that. And then they get off of them because they start to feel better. And they think I don't need it.
Mm-hmm.
And like not realizing that like, no, there's a reason you feel better. And it's the
Yeah.
medicine. and,
Yeah.
and then watching their downward spiral. It's just sad.
Yeah. There's also it's like further complicated with these people that see themselves as geniuses like Kanye, because I bet that his best work comes from the manic phase. And so what he thinks of as his best work, at least, and maybe what other people praise him for as his best work, but that mania creates somebody who is like kind of like protected against shame and also like self-consciousness. So it does unlock a lot of creativity and like go for it energy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like I can imagine somebody like Kanye being like, I don't even actually care that I'm unhinged, because my whole world is centered around the type of art that I create, because I'm a genius.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I remember talking to a therapist years ago because I'm a writer and talking about like, my own relationship with alcohol, and him saying like, do you feel like because there's this narrative that writers drink, that you feel like that's where you get your best work, that's where and to some extent yes, like there's an author that I really really love, and when he was an alcoholic, he came out with his undeniably best work, and he doesn't even remember writing some of these books, like Carrie and Salem's Lot and It. And then he got sober, and it it's felt like
Changed his art.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and like Bukowski, and there's like actually a lot of celebrating
Yes.
drug addiction and alcoholism as like being kind of romanticized, and it actually can like make it difficult to get sober for sure, I think,
I
too.
think so, yeah.
The idea, like I remember feeling like the idea of going out to have a glass of wine at a bar as a girl in my 20s in New York City is like so romantic, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's not romantic when I've had 17 glasses of wine and I lose my shoes on the way home and I fall asleep in the subway platform, but it was romantic 4 or 5 hours ago when I was having my first glass, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I totally get that. Yeah. So anyway, that was a really long tangent to basically say I've been feeling like shit, but I think that the main problem was that I was having high blood pressure from going off the meds. And so I actually took a baby aspirin this morning, and I actually like do feel better. I woke up feeling better today, but I also just do feel better. Like yesterday I couldn't have been standing this long. I would have been, it's like I would get up thinking, okay, like in my mind, I have the energy, and I would like get up and think I was feeling better, and then immediately be like, I have to lay back down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really sucked.
We've been feeling like shit too, but for different reasons.
You've been feeling like literally shit.
Yes, we
Yeah.
have the stomach bug in our house, and it is manifesting itself in different ways for each of us. One of my kids is struggling with both ends of his body. One of my kids can't go to the bathroom, so his stomach hurts. and my youngest is basically hoarding the bathroom. She's got her phone and just sits in there for like an hour. I had to like leave a grocery store with like my cart with food. Like I'm like, I have to leave now. I have to leave right now.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh.
so we are fighting whatever. This has been going around in my with my coworkers around here and
Yeah.
friends. Like everybody's been battling the stomach bug, and luckily most stomach bugs are fierce and ugly but short.
Yeah. Hopefully it's a 24-hour situation.
I hope so. I really,
Yeah.
I really hope so. So it's going to be a lot of
Yeah.
Lysol and bleach and
Listen, guys, neurovirus, if that's what you guys have, neurovirus, when I learned that that isn't killed by hand sanitizer, that you have to wash your hands with hot soapy water for 30 seconds, like, no wonder people are not washing their hands like that.
no, I know they're not. My kids leave the bathroom all the time, and I'm like, the sink never turned on,
Yeah.
never turned on, and they're like, yeah, huh? No, it didn't.
And I know that it takes at least 30 seconds for that water to get hot. So you should have been in there running the water a lot longer than that.
I don't think that's what we have, because the last time we actually all did have that was spectacularly the worst experience of our life. I remember driving home from the doctor's office, and kids are just puking in the car, which causes the next kid to puke, and I'm trying to drive and now I'm puke. It was awful. It was absolutely horrible. And I just
Yeah.
remember like Lysoling. I mean, I Lysol doorknobs and remote controls and just anything to get this thing out of my house. It was so
Yeah.
gnarly. So
Yeah.
gnarly.
So gnarly. I heard that that one was so bad this year. I was like so cautious because I did not want that. I did not want to get that.
I know.
Anyway, hope everybody's feeling well today. Yeah. How was your week other than that? Just the sickness is going around.
Yeah, that's
Been at
it.
the pool a lot.
We've been at the pool a lot. And I finally
This
gave
is
it.
actually your break from the pool.
Yes.
Your kiddo's being sick. You finally get a day, a morning off.
You right, a morning off, because my 7-year-old is already like, I feel good enough. When you're done recording, can we go?
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, you don't come on, like you're gonna have to poop at the pool. So no, it's been good. We did fine. I'm finally up to date on Love Island.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so is my teenage daughter. She came home yesterday. She told
No,
me
I don't like that.
first. She told me that we have to watch the new season of Dallas Cowboy Cheerleaders. She said it was great.
Okay.
And then my husband went in her bedroom and saw her watching Love Island. And he's like, not you too. And she's like, I love this show. And so she's all caught up, but she's similar to me. She did have to like fast forward through the last challenge with the
Yeah.
milk and the spit. Like she was like, I can't,
No,
I
no,
can't.
no.
I'm like, all right, that's my girl. I'm really glad that you feel the same.
Yeah, I think that the only way I could have watched that is if I had convinced myself that it wasn't actually milk. Like
What
it's
would be an okay substance?
like nothing is really okay, but it's way grosser that it's milk. Like if it were like watered down, I can't even think of anything that would look like milk, but I'm sure that they have TV tricks to make things look like milk, but it's really just water that like has some sort of thing in it, but still, yeah, I mean it's still disgusting.
No, I can't. I can't. You know what
Yeah.
she said is she was like, the only thing I don't like is like every guy is ugly on that show. And I'm like, ugly? What are we looking for in a man if every one of these guys is ugly?
Yeah. What is she?
I don't know. She just said she does not find any of them attractive. But you know, I have a theory about this actually. And I wonder, I'm not sure, but I wonder. I had read a study years ago that you are attracted to people, first of all, that are like your same level of attractiveness, but that you generally are attracted to people of the same age.
Yeah.
And as you grow, then you find yourself attracted to people that are this age, which
Yeah, you'd hope so.
right, you would
Right.
hope so. I find it to be true, right? Like I'm sure if I showed my kids a picture of Brad Pitt today, they might be like, he's got like gray hair. And I am
Right.
like, he's so sexy. What is wrong with you?
Yeah.
George Clooney,
Yeah, George Clooney is more my type just because I know that as far as we know, he's not an awful, terrible piece of
right.
shit human being.
I'm not getting into personality here, Lauren.
I know, but I can't not take that into consideration. Like if you're
I
a Republican, I can't be attracted to you. That's
I
just like
understand.
yeah.
That's fair. So I
Not
mean,
that Brad Pitt's a Republican, I don't know.
so if the moral is that my 15-year-old is not attracted to 25-year-olds, I'm super down with that. I'm okay.
100%. They look like children to me, but I love that for her. I think that's great.
Yes, I'm like, you're right. They are
Yeah.
so ugly.
I
God.
know, they're disgusting.
Yeah.
Ew, ew, yeah.
Yeah.
What
So,
does she think about the girls?
um, I think she has strong opinions about the girls, but I think that she is scared to express them in front of me, honestly, because she knows that I don't do well with hearing anyone criticize certain things about a woman.
Because her opinions might be more about how they look.
I think so. Yeah, and sometimes she can just be a little bit more jabby than I would.
Yeah.
And she just knows that about me, that I'll be like, that's a very unkind thing to say, and she'd be like, I've listened to your podcast, you say unkind shit. No, she wouldn't say that. But I'm just saying, I think just because that's our general rule in the house,
Yeah.
that she would be. So she just said, and I just know that because she brought up Huda.
Oh, yeah.
And she was like, yeah, I mean, she's pretty. I don't know. It seems like she's maybe overreacting. I could tell there was more she wanted to say,
Yeah, for
I'm like, well,
sure.
good for you for reining it in.
Wait, that might mean that like her medicine is working.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
She's working on
We'll take the small
take
wins.
the win.
For sure. That reminds me, I saw a great TikTok this week. This is going to be a real chatty McChat episode because I think we haven't chatted in a few days, really like a ton, because we've been not feeling good and kind of busy and stuff. And so, like, you guys are in for like a chatty episode.
It happens.
It happens.
It
Because
happens.
I saw a great TikTok this week and I saw like 4 or 5 TikToks I wanted to send you last night, but I think you were in the middle of something or, oh no, you had sent me a really interesting and like thoughtful comment. We were talking about Ozempic and GLP-1s and how they turn off the pleasure center in the brain.
Right.
And you were talking about how you thought that therapists should like that there is a market for therapists to help treat people who are on GLP-1s who are having trouble finding pleasure in anything, find like kick off their pleasure centers with things that are healthy so that they can like replace the habit with something
Well,
that's
my
healthier.
my concern is that like you don't stay on high doses forever unless you're diabetic. Like the goal is that you come down to the lowest dose possible, and then you either get off the medication or you find that maintenance dose it's really really low. As you come down, if you haven't done any work on any of the things, it's like all those triggers just come right back.
Yeah.
You haven't figured out, well, what are you going to do to find pleasure in something healthy? And
Yeah.
so it's just all of a sudden you hear, whether it's the food noise or you see a glass of wine that a month ago you wouldn't have really looked twice at, but now you're like, oh, I remember. It's a very odd thing. And I'm like, they
Yeah.
should like help people figure that out.
Yeah, and I think anybody who's like started a habit of like munching at night.
Right.
It's like once you start a habit of munching at night, when that like time hits every night, you're like, "Ooh, it's time for munch. It's time for me to munch down on some stuff." So anyway, I thought that was really sweet, but I did not have a single 2 brain cells to knock together to talk to you about that. And so instead I was just scrolling TikTok, but I felt guilty because I hadn't replied to your message with something thoughtful. And so I didn't send you all the TikToks that I thought were funny because I didn't want to like send you all of those without responding thoughtfully to your message anyway.
By the time you were there, we were dealing with our like kind but crazy next door neighbor.
Yeah.
So we were like, we have a next door neighbor that's just not, she's just not well. And so she wanted a ride to the ER yesterday, and my poor husband, because I'm like, what do you want me to do? She's calling and crying. You have to go help her. And so we were just dealing with that.
Yeah.
And we got her there, and then she messaged that she was ready to be like picked up. And by then my husband's like, I'm assuming you're not going with me. And I'm like, I will not be doing that. No, I'm all done now. So
It's wild that she assumed you guys would pick her up.
isn't it wild? I mean, you still
How far
have,
away is the hospital?
I mean, it's only 10 minutes, but she
No,
also,
she could have Ubered. I mean, like, is it?
right?
Yeah.
My husband's like, I literally don't think she would have any idea how to do that.
Oh, okay, okay.
That was
It's
his
like
thought.
that kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah, she's just so, and it was so funny because I was laying in bed and I'm like drifting to sleep, and he leaves to go pick her up, and then like he comes back and I see he just like rages in the front door, straight to the garage. And then I see him coming back from the garage, and he's got crutches, like our old crutches in his hands. And he's like, and I'm like, how's it going? And he's like, it's fine. She needs crutches. She can't walk. And I'm like, hey, I love you.
Oh
So
no.
yeah.
Well,
So,
that is what
but it's
community is
fun. Yeah.
for.
Yeah. That's what you know what? That is what I said to him. I was like, this is what we do for neighbors. And he's like, no, this is what I do for neighbors. You
Right.
answer the phone and say he's on his way.
And lay in bed. Yep. Well,
That's how it goes.
that's what husbands are for.
Exactly. So what did you see
Yeah.
on TikTok?
Oh yeah, I saw on TikTok this gal was talking about how she was talking about VPR and how Katie Maloney has I had to like kind of so Katie Maloney was kind of looked at during VPR as she was body shamed. She was thought of as like the fat one and the one that was like not as pretty as the other girls and all this kind of stuff. And it was a black girl that made this TikTok and she was talking about how like she's like, the propaganda I'm not falling for is, which is like a trend right now going around, is the Eurocentric body standards and Eurocentric standards of beauty. And how she's like, when you look at Katie, she's got these full lips, beautiful hair, like shiny, beautiful, thick hair. Like, she had all these pictures of her. Here she gained weight, quote unquote, and got body shamed a bunch by a bunch of different people on this season. But like, look at her. She's just got like a curvier body. She's in a larger body than Lala and Sheena. And she's like, when you look at her face, like her face is so striking and beautiful, but because she's not in a body like that, people with Eurocentric body standards don't see her as being as pretty.
Yeah.
And it was just a really thoughtful and interesting TikTok about, and I will make a note to add it to the notes so that people can go watch it. But I did think it was a really interesting point, and it's something I've been thinking about this, like the fat phobia that exists in American culture and probably in European culture as well. And how, simultaneously in this country, we have systems that have created food environments in which people have a really difficult time being able to afford to eat healthy and healthy, quote unquote, like fruits and vegetables and whole foods and things like that. And a lot of misinformation and misunderstandings about what health is. And GLP-1s hit the market for diabetes, and everyone and their mom who has a connection with a doctor who has been wanting to lose weight. I'm not talking about people that need to medically lose weight. I'm talking about like the person on Real Housewives who wants to lose 20 pounds and become stick skinny instead of skinny, that kind of thing. And just this whole like kind of environment around losing weight means then you're prettier, then you're treated differently in society. And like, we can't ignore those facts. Like, not that you're prettier, but that you are treated differently.
Well, 100%. And I also, not only is it finding a doctor, but I think it's just going to exemplify the economic disparity because
Mhm.
if you're poor, you can't afford these medications. Period. End of story. You cannot, if you're poor, afford these medications. You can't really find an insurance that covers weight loss
Unless
meds.
you have diabetes.
Yeah, if you have diabetes, then some of them are covered. But even then, they're still going to want the person that's diabetic to try a bunch of different other medications first. But if you are not diabetic, because both Mounjaro and Ozempic, those are the two diabetes medicines. But now we have Wegovy and Zepbound, which are the exact same medications to a T. They're the exact same meds. It's just one is for, if you take Mounjaro, it's for diabetes. If you take Zepbound, it's for weight loss. If you take Ozempic, it's for diabetes. If you take Wegovy, it's for weight loss. They're the exact same med, same manufacturer, but that's how it's put into the system. And so even if you're morbidly obese, most insurance companies will not cover weight loss medications.
Right.
And you can't get the diabetic medication because you're not diabetic. You got to put your, your blood tests in and all that. And so I think, you're looking at anywhere from $500 to $1,200 a month for these medications, 500 being the really cheap end. And so I think it's just going to cause another economic disparity where it's just like the rich are going to continue to be beautiful and thin because they have access to things that the poor do not. And so it just makes me sad because I know there is a huge difference in how you're treated.
Yeah, for sure. And especially how you're treated by other white women,
Mhm. Yes.
right? Because like I think that was one of the points that this girl was making is like in black culture, those beauty standards aren't as I don't know exactly, but like what she was saying is that they're not as held up as the beauty standard. The idea is like as you get older, you put on more weight. Like that's just how bodies are. And you know, you become curvier and you get like hips and butts and you know, your body gains weight in kind of all areas, and that's just what aging looks like, and that's beautiful, and that's different than, and so like these curvier bodies are seen more as like the beauty standard,
Yeah.
whereas with white women, particularly upper class white women, like being thin is the beauty standard. That is basically the whole beauty standard,
Yeah, that very
and
like
looking young.
waif, right, delicate waif. Like, and I see, I've there is someone from reality TV that you and I follow that I think has lost way too much weight.
Yeah,
And
actually there are a couple people that I bet you would agree with me on, somebody that we haven't talked about, but yeah.
there are times where I see pictures of them with their 11-year-old child or 7-year-old, like, and I'm like, it's scary that they look like they have bigger bones than you. Like
Yeah.
they just, I'm like, that, and what message are you? It's just, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's funny because it's like in some ways it feels like we have moved forward in the body diversity movement. And in some ways we're exactly where we were in the 90s when heroin chic was popular and like the way to look.
Yes, I totally agree. And I think the Ozempic trend almost brought that back, where
A
it's
hundred
like
percent.
the heroin chic is like back again. I don't know that it really is real world though. Like, yes, I think you get treated differently if you're heavier in public and things like that. But what I mean is, like, I don't know that what we see on TV is what's necessarily like considered attractive out in the world. I just don't
That's
know.
so true.
You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. And we watch a lot of reality TV and we are really like tuned into social media and reality TV and things like that. So we probably more than the normal person see those beauty standards as beautiful,
Yeah, and
interestingly enough.
that's always been a big fear of mine with my kids and social media, wanting to keep them off Instagram and these things, because I'm just like, these are filtered, cultivated bullshit lighting and positioning and, whatever, and I don't want them to think that's how their body should look.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And Stassi this week was talking on her podcast about how it was a really funny segment, and I love Stassi. She was talking about how like she cringes when she sees people using like true filters still on Instagram, and how like especially when then they save that photo and like upload it as like part of their grid or whatever, and it's like you've got like a filter on, not just like a beauty filter but like a full on filter, and like your bone, your bone structure is different and your boobs are bigger and your waist is smaller, and then you upload that. And she's like, I just find it so cringy. And while she was saying that, I'm thinking, yes, and right now in this very moment you are in a body and have had, plastic surgery and other things to make you look like the beauty standard. So you don't have to worry about having to have those filters on. Now, with that said, we know that she has all of her own insecurities, and that probably if she could get away with it, she would edit her photos to look different even than she does right now, when right now to our eyes she looks like the beauty standard. So it's just like it is like a very complicated thing because everybody has their own insecurities about how they look, and it's sort of like almost irrelevant to how you actually look,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. 100%.
Or not irrelevant to, but not associated with. Like we see ourselves differently than other people see us.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've joked to you before. Like, I'm excited about all the things AI can do, because if I can get like an AI model to be the face of my TikTok, I bet I go viral. I've got great ideas, but I'm
Yeah,
no
exactly.
like supermodel that you're gonna, watch the same way. So that's the really gross reality. And I think that all the time, whether it's with, being a true crime junkie. And I can see that the more attractive you are, the more that America will
People
give a
care.
shit that you
Yep.
went missing or were murdered.
Yeah,
And
and the whiter you are.
yeah, 100%. And it's
Yeah.
really sad.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's our 30-minute tangent. Let's get into the episode. Mahmoud Khalil. So really quick, let's like recap. Who is he? When was he taken? Like for anybody who doesn't know the story, because we might have people that are listening who don't know any of the current events. So
So
what? Who is he? Why does it matter?
he's not a US citizen, but he does have a green card. He's married to a US citizen. He was attending was it Columbia?
I think so. Yeah.
And he would be considered, free Palestine, pro Palestine, and had been kind of speaking out on the issue. And ultimately, he was detained and incarcerated. And the U.S. government was trying to say that it was because we have the right to deport anyone at any. He's not a U.S. citizen.
And they were saying that he's anti-Semitic, right? Wasn't
Yes.
that their whole thing was because he's free Palestine, he's therefore anti-Semitic.
It did sound like he was leading up a lot of the pro-Palestine protests on campus and things like that. So not only was he incarcerated, but they moved him to one of those detention facilities in Louisiana. So, he missed the birth of his first child. He was incarcerated for like 105 days. And then a U.S. district judge ordered him released on Friday or Thursday. And the judge said that he was likely incarcerated as punishment for his political activism and not a legally justified immigration action. So he was released. He was reunited with his wife and his newborn baby. He is still undergoing deportation proceedings, and he has said he is going to continue being vocal about Palestine.
Right.
So we're going to see what happens. Again, I think it's always, when we get fired, people got fired up when he was detained, and rightly so. And then it kind of like loses its steam and loses its energy. And then when it has an outcome that is what we fought for and what we wanted, it doesn't get as much press or as much
Yeah.
airtime. But I think it's important to note when it happens because it
Yep.
shows that keeping that pressure on can have good results.
100%. And this is what we've said with the other prisoners that have been released so far. And Kilmar, it's like I almost forgot his name. I'm like that guy that we've been talking about every single week for 6 weeks. Kilmar Abrego Garcia was released, and it's like we had sort of forgotten about him and moved on to the next like fire that the Trump administration has um started, and that's the point.
Yep.
So I wanted to actually, this is another tangent because I wanted another TikTok I saw was about the idea that steeped into American Christianity is Israeli loyalty, is loyalty to Israel and the Jewish people, I guess, to some extent. And I was not raised religious, or like I was so far from, I don't know anything about religion really, except for what I've learned in my adult life.
Okay.
So I didn't know any of this, but I saw a TikTok from a gal who's like, she's an ex-fundamentalist,
Okay.
ex-Christian nationalist, ex-Christian fundamentalist, and she talks about it on her platform. And I wanted to share a little bit of this video because I thought it was really interesting. It brought in a new perspective that I hadn't really considered when we think about how this administration with their Project 2025 goals and the idea that they are like the people at the top are all Christian nationalists and white supremacists, and how all of that ties in with this idea that they're trying to put out that by saying the conflict in Israel, or sorry, the conflict in Gaza should end, by saying we're pro free Palestine, we are therefore anti-Semitic, and like where that comes from. I
Yeah.
didn't understand that. I just thought it was a dart that they were throwing at the board, sort of like they were just like, well, this is just an easy scapegoat for us.
No, and before you play it, my mom is extremely religious, and she's had her moments where she's almost been, that extreme evangelical Christian, and she's extremely pro-Israel. And I have learned through her that that is part of that belief system, that
Mm-hmm.
biblical covenant where they believe that God promised the land of Israel to the Jewish people in the Bible, and that promise is
Mm-hmm.
eternal. So I've always believed that the reason that Trump has been so loudly pro Israel is to appease the evangelical Christian. That has always been my
Yeah,
thought. Yeah.
like I didn't get that I didn't get that comparison. Or yeah. So here's a little clip from what she's talking about. And this is the canceled Christian on TikTok. So I'll turn it up.
Nationalists and fundamentalists, and the last thing that I deconstructed from was my love for Israel. So, growing up in Christianity, you almost feel as a Christian that you are a Jew. And I know that's very, very insulting to Jewish people, so apologies, but we kind of like cosplayed being Jewish. Some Christians would like have they like play Shabbat and they would celebrate Jewish holidays. And like I had a Jewish class in my co-op, and there were a lot of like Messianic Jews in the Christian fundy world. Anyway, so we also, since we have the Old Testament and we believed in the God of the Jews, we just felt very, very, very close to Judaism and, of course, Israel. And we were told throughout the whole Bible that you have to be friends with Israel no matter what they do. Even though they're evil, you have to always support them and they're God's chosen people, and you have to be pro-Israel. And then also, like, I grew up hearing stories of how Israel was persecuted all the time, about everything, about the Holocaust, about how Jews are persecuted so much. My history books didn't really mention slavery that much, but that's another story for another time. So we were indoctrinated from birth to be very pro-Israel. And it was not until after October 7th, when everyone was talking about Israel, that it dawns on me, because once you deconstruct a whole, like,
So she goes on to talk about how when that conflict happened, when that day happened, she went online and she watched a pro-Israel video, she watched a pro-Palestine video, and then she watched like a third video. And then she kind of drew her conclusions from that, which I thought was a really interesting way to go about figuring out like where do I fall in this. And I imagined myself doing the same thing with other types of topics. And anyway, just an interesting thought experiment. But she goes on to say that that's how she went about like learning about the conflict between Israel and Palestine, and realized how evil Israel is in this whole dynamic, but how she had been raised to not believe that. And I just thought it was really interesting, a really beautiful display of like critical thinking skills.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I'm going to push
yeah,
back on the Israel is evil.
yeah.
I'm going to push back on that just because I think I don't like to use language like that, because I think it always, we then forget the humanity behind the people that are there, that,
Well,
you
yeah, you're
know,
not saying like all Israeli people are
right,
evil.
right. But
Yeah,
that's what it can become, right? And so I always want to
yeah.
be careful with how that is. But yes, and I think, obviously in the Christian faith, Jesus was Jewish. Like my mom, who is like evangelical Christian, she wears like the Star of David, right? Because it makes her feel close to Jesus. And the Christians, there are some of them that
That's
believe,
interesting.
yeah, there
I'm
are
like
some.
just absorbing that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, she's got like the bumper stickers, Star of David as well. Like that is something but that is something I have seen in that Christian evangelical thing. There also is something in the Bible that the return of Jews to Israel will be the fulfillment of the prophecy of that, which would then be the sign of the last days, which would then mean the second coming of Christ. And so whatever you can do to like push that along, and like that's what we have to have happen. That's the prophecy. It's that they all return. And then you have other people who sometimes still have that, rightly, guilt from the Holocaust and what happened, and this idea that we're going to give the Jewish people a homeland, or give them back their homeland, even though it's been hundreds or thousands of years since that's. So it's very complicated, but I think it's one of those things that's more complicated for people that aren't living there. Like I don't know, but my guess would be, just like it is anywhere, the majority of the people there living just want a peaceful life, and it's like
Yeah.
everybody else that is making it like what it is. And so, but it's scary
You
because,
mean living in Israel?
yeah, living in
Yeah.
Israel,
Well, it's like in the US, you couldn't say like, we are Americans as people are evil because we've bombed Iran. Like
right, right.
that's not what
It's not
anybody
fair. That's not.
basically anybody wanted here, and so you can't group us in. But it's like by saying Israel is evil, what we're saying is like the the people that have led the movement, the people that have instilled racism
Yeah.
in that country, you know, just the same way that people have instilled racism here. Like those people.
Well, and I think that where I get frustrated, where it's all become like, if you say anything against Israel, then like, yeah, you get labeled like, you know, you hate Jewish people and it's anti-Semitic. And I just, what bothers me is I'm like, I wish that we would just be honest about the fact that the movement has been hijacked by evangelical Christians much more so than the Jewish people. And I just wish we were a little bit more honest about that fact.
Yeah. And maybe people aren't thinking about it that hard,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And
Yeah.
so anyway, we've gotten through one bullet point. He has been released and is going through a proper immigration process now.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Then we have Karen Reed. She was acquitted of murder and manslaughter. The jury found her not guilty. She was found guilty of leaving the scene when she was driving, or no, not even leaving the scene. I think it was just driving under the influence. So
Driving under the influence.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's just a year of
Fair enough.
probation, right? Fair enough. You were
Sounds like they were all drunk that night based
Yep.
on the little amount that I know. Okay.
Yep. I'm fine with it. I've told you my opinion. I think my opinion is that she probably did hit him. I think it was an accident. I don't think she realized she did. I don't think there was anything intentional about this. I think this was just a series of bad choices by both of them. And I think it's sad, but I think this is ultimately the right outcome.
Yeah. Yeah, I tend to agree. You don't want
Cool.
somebody who accidentally kills someone to go to prison forever.
Yeah.
Especially somebody that they love. That just is so sad. The fact that you would have to mourn the death of the person that you love and maybe thought you were going to spend your life with alongside fighting for your own freedom in that case would be just like, who could ever process that information? But what I thought also was interesting is I saw her speech outside of the courthouse after she was acquitted. And one of the things she said was that no one has fought for justice for John O'Keefe as hard as she has. And I'm imagining myself in that situation where the person that you love has been murdered. Like, my impression is that she doesn't even think that she hit him.
I agree, but I think that's just because, like, there's been so many conspiracies and ideas and things said. I fully believe she believes that.
Yeah. And so it's like, for her, just imagine putting yourself in that scenario. You don't think you did it. You definitely didn't do it on purpose. And if you didn't do it, somebody else did.
Yeah.
And that seems like it's been what drove her to continue to fight so hard. And so she got some of the best lawyers that you can get in the area. And one of her lawyers apparently only sleeps 2 hours a night, is just like a crazy person. And he was talking about how his wife makes him lunch every day and how he couldn't do it without her, which I thought was just really nice. But I was going to say, I was listening to the Daily Dose of Donna podcast. Have you ever listen to that?
No.
Listen, I'm like a little on the fence on her. I can't really figure out where I land. So another thing she was talking about in this podcast, it was an interview with, I think, one of the lawyers, I think, but I don't know. I came in midway, but she was talking about, or the lawyer was talking about how Karen knew the evidence and the police reports and everything even more than the lawyers did. Like, she lived and breathed this trial, and she studied law and law strategy for the last few years, and that all of the lawyers like really didn't want to let her down. That was kind of the vibe, is that they were like, they really, really wanted to make her proud and make her feel like all of this was worth something.
Yeah.
So it seems like she was well liked and respected with her lawyers. So anyway, great news for her. I hope that she, I bet this trial and these lawyers cost a lot of money. I hope she sells a documentary to Netflix or something and recoups. Good.
It's the one I was telling you about that's on Max, and that's all. It's on HBO Max. It's a 4-part, and you can tell that it's mostly her and her lawyers. So they clearly sold that. You know what I mean? Like, they're doing plenty of one-on-one interviews. So I think that's how she got the money for the second trial.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. And I think a lot of her fans funded it, her supporters. She called them her supporters, but she said she wouldn't have been able to do it without her supporters helping her fund this and everything. So just wonderful. And also, like, I had never seen a picture of her or anything. She's beautiful, which makes sense why people are so invested in it.
Of course.
Back to
Yep.
our original point. All right, Vance Boelter.
Okay, so court filings have revealed that he and his wife were preppers. They had that survivalist mindset, owning about 50 guns, body bags, police style vehicles. And he had texted the family in a group text with his kids and his wife. Dad went to war last night right after the attacks happened. And it does seem like that had been a lot of the rhetoric that he had been saying and also hearing for a while. You know, political attacks are becoming more common, and when you look at like the college that he went to, and you know, they're all trying to say that everything they're saying is metaphorical and it's not meant to be taken literally, but they're saying things about, like, you know, they say once a day you should, it's something like violently pray or pray for violence. And of course now they're saying what we mean by that is just like pray passionately, pray. And it's like, then why didn't you say that? That's not what you said. That's not the language you used. And the same thing with this, like,
language matters.
right. When they're talking about like how this is the, you know, a war for the soul of our country and just all of this shit. And then you wonder how something like this happens. So I just, and I find it disturbing that it should still be on our news. We should still be talking about it. You can tell the right kind of wanted to move away from it as soon as it became clear where he stood. They don't want to use the word assassination. They don't, you know, they want to just say like crazy mass murder. And it's like that. No, it's not, because it was politically motivated about a certain ideology that that side promotes. And it's just, it's worrisome that this is the level, and this is what happens when we use language like this, when we demonize people, when we act like they're not human, when, you know, we can't have our leaders talk this way and think there won't be consequences.
Right. It almost like, it kind of like leaves me speechless, just the lack of humanity that can exist on both sides, on any like strong side of something. And I'm guilty of it too, with wishing bad things for people that I perceive as doing bad things. And our perception is our reality. And for him, his perception was that they were the evil ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in the wake of that, a family mourned. You know, I was crying the other day, actually, just thinking about the fact that the next day or that weekend was Father's Day. And there were a couple families that were mourning their first Father's Day without their father unexpectedly.
Yeah.
Or I guess one family. And well, and another whose dad is going to prison.
Yeah.
And hopefully
well,
we'll
right,
see.
right. As long as Trump doesn't pardon him or anything crazy. And
Yeah.
then like I think a lot about, you know, his own kids and the belief system that they were raised in, and then what it makes you question. And it's just so much destruction in the wake of this,
Yeah.
and none of the right people wanting to take an ounce of responsibility for the
Yeah.
things that you say. And it's just, it's awful. And the truth is that if it had been Republican lawmakers that had been shot, I feel like they wouldn't shut up about it.
Yeah.
You know, I would really love to see more across the aisle. This is not democracy. This is not what we stand for. We're not going to agree. We're going to have very spirited and passionate debates, but this is never, ever, 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 ever going to be a way that is acceptable to handle it. Call him a monster, call him an assassin, call him all the ugly things, so that nobody sees it and thinks that anyone views it as acceptable.
Yeah, and at the same time, though, it's almost like you're being hypocritical by saying that he's the evil one. I mean, he did kill people, but I'm just saying that, like, also for me, it's like trying to understand where that comes from, because I have hatred too. My hatred is just aimed at different people. And if I were just unhinged enough, who knows what I would do. And I think that there's this, like, the fact that he's a prepper and a doomsdayer and somebody who was gearing up for something
Yeah.
says a lot about the paranoia and delusion that him and his family were living under. And the fact that multiple people, you know, like his wife is also included. What are we going to say? They both had a mental illness? Like, probably not. They
Well,
probably were just living in a reality that felt incredibly scary.
yeah, and they're hearing sermons about how there are politicians that have demons inside of them. You know, like you dehumanize someone to such a degree that you somehow think that you're not causing the anguish and pain that you are, that you're really just
Yeah.
God's warrior. And
Yeah.
it's just really sad.
Yeah. Well, it is really sad. And my heart aches for those families that are grieving, for everybody that goes to the floor of the house and sees the little vigil on her desk with her picture and a candle and flowers, and, you know, everybody who's mourning the loss of somebody in their community. That is sad.
Yeah. Yep. All right.
We're going to get light, then we're going to get heavy again, I think
Yep.
is the vibe. All right.
Yep. We've got the Scott Wolf, Kelly Wolf. Did you take
Oh,
a
I
look?
wanted to play something.
Oh, okay. What you
So
got?
go ahead.
Did you take a look at her Instagram after I sent it to you?
Yes, and I wasn't in the headspace, as I was saying earlier, with my two brain cells left to knock together to understand what was going on. But I did a little bit more research this morning. And what I didn't pick up on when you first sent me her Instagram, but what I realized today is just how manic all of her posts seem. They're
Yeah.
very consecutive. They're very like main character energy, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It's giving like the world is revolving around me. Everybody's watching me do what I'm doing. And now, like, can everybody just go away? But hey, I'm going to keep trying to get attention.
It's the oddest thing to hear her say things like, don't talk about my children, don't post about my children. And then, like, her next story is like a picture of her child. And I'm like, well, I don't understand what it is you want, really. Like, it's the oddest,
Yeah. Sorry, I just saw, I like opened my Instagram to pull up her Instagram. And I saw this like announcement, the middle top, and that looked like Dylan Efron. And I was like, oh my God, is Dylan Efron and his girlfriend having a baby? And then I clicked in and it's like, nope, no, I don't know either of those people.
oh God.
Okay. But I'm invested in Dylan Efron and his like happiness. I want him to be happy.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. And so
Okay,
when we
so
talked
Kelly
last week,
Wolf.
I had told you about when we talked last week, I had told you about her Instagram going live with the police there, taking her in for
Yes.
LC 150, right? And she was obviously released, and then
And it's still up. At least it was whenever I looked. Like that video is still up.
well, that not only it's still up, but it wasn't. It was an Instagram story that was live. Then when she got out, she reposted it.
Right.
On her Instagram as like a post.
Yeah.
And
like it wasn't an accident. Which tells me that she feels that it's unfair. She feels like she's being persecuted.
Yes. Yes. But this is her family and friends that are this is not just like her husband or her it's her family and friends that are concerned.
Right. Like look how many this is 18 hours. 18 hours ago was her oldest. Look how many Instagram stories there are.
Oh my God.
In the last 18 hours, she's posted at a minimum 25 Instagram stories.
That is crazy.
So I would say, and like not all of them are about her. A lot of them are like reposts of things that she is finding she's resonating with. Without knowing anything, this looks like mania.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's sad. Like that sucks. And you wonder because what I was understanding was like their marriage seemed to be stable and happy up until a sudden change. And so you have to wonder if there is like a mental health crisis happening and either she went off medication that she's always been on or something switched or she's under a ton of pressure and like it's causing a mental breakdown of some sort.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Scott Wolf is from Party of Five, and Kelly, her last name used to be Limp. She was on The Real World New Orleans.
Right.
And then
the challenge.
The challenge. Yep.
Yeah, like she went to a shaman.
Yeah. It's
I'm like,
all it's all a lot.
it is a lot. It's a lot, a lot.
And then we saw Scott Wolf post pictures of him with his kids, and it said like my forever tribe, and they're in an airport. And I really got the impression he posted it because people that were following the Instagram, she was saying she was with her kids, and there was a little bit of like, yeah, is it all right that you're with the kids? Because you don't
Yeah,
seem all right. Like it seemed like his way of letting everybody know I have the kids. There's nothing to worry about.
right.
You know.
Yeah, it's you've got me interested in this story now that because it does seem, I mean, it's always like these people where you're like it's a spectator event. You're watching somebody's mental health decline and being like, what could possibly be going on? And I don't know what it is about that like car crash scenario that just makes us not be able to look away.
Well, I think some of it too is like when you know you have an audience, you're a public figure and you continue to post. You know, like if you don't say anything, we could speculate, but we're not going to keep on it.
Right. And her Instagram is public. So if she just wants her family and friends to know how she's doing and see all of her posts, then she could certainly go private or make a close friends. Like she's saying she doesn't want attention at the same time that her actions are telling us otherwise.
Yeah. So one of the things that I was looking at, and I used this to kind of look at, was the difference between TikTok and Reddit.
Right.
And TikTok is mostly rallying behind Kelly. It is sympathetic towards her. There's a lot of videos that are amplifying her claims of psychological abuse, presenting her as a victim of Scott's behavior. There's TikTok captions like she's being held against her will. This is abuse.
Oh
And
God. Are we in another Free Britney scenario?
there's very minimal critique of her mental health. Instead, there's a narrative framing her as brave for speaking out. And so they're saying why this happens is that TikTok has a fast moving algorithm that promotes emotional, personal storytelling that resonates deeply, especially stories that center on abuse, empowerment, and trauma. Now, Reddit is leaning much more heavily towards Scott's side and looking at her mental health struggles. And so they're kind of doing more of deep dives into that manic or erratic behavior, talking about why she sounds unstable. And you know that I'm not a big fan of Reddit, which is why I wanted to look at this because I don't generally like the tone of Reddit. Even though there are times when I agree with certain things. And so I was curious as to why. And so here's what I read about the difference is that because TikTok focuses on short, high emotion videos, but Reddit encourages longer discussion and nuance, then you're going to see this where it's like on Reddit, you're more concerned with paragraph form. Here's my evidence. Here's my whatever. And TikTok is more just wanting to pull at your heartstrings.
Yeah.
And, get you into that emotional investment. TikTok also tends to have a younger, emotionally responsive audience. Reddit users' demographic is generally older and male. Which I didn't know that. I didn't know that it was, I knew older, but I was surprised that it was like the demographic lean so much more male than TikTok.
I think it's because you and I exist in subreddits that are mainly female.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So we have probably a skewed sample size.
Yes.
And we probably are in subreddits that lean progressive.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I very rarely go on Reddit. I have to, I try. Like if I'm on Reddit, it's because I tried to get there for a specific thing I wanted to look at. Like I don't.
Yeah, like my whole Reddit feed is like pop culture chat, Vanderpumpaholics, like yeah, it's all pop culture and reality TV essentially, and then a little bit of politics, just a little bit. But I usually like don't interact with those posts. I don't want to see them. Like when I'm on Reddit, I'm like trying to be silly. I'm not trying to be serious.
Right. So this is what there was a study done that showed that on Reddit, dismissive tones like this is clearly manic. People need to stop babying her. Will get more upvotes than empathetic tones.
That's interesting.
On Reddit, there seems to be a culture of gatekeeping compassion. Users like to debate who deserves sympathy based on logic or proof only. And the other big one was that the culture on TikTok or on Reddit with this karma economy, where I guess you get like karma for your upvotes and things like that. And the studies have found that Reddit users incentivize snark and cynicism. Those get more upvotes than almost anything else.
Yeah, snark is really like there's a huge culture of celebrity snark on Reddit. I freaking hate those subreddits. One of the subreddits that's sort of like snarky without officially being a snark subreddit. Like there are official snark subreddits. Like there's an Emily Kaiser snark subreddit. There's a, Brittany Cartwright snark subreddit. There's a Jax Taylor snark subreddit. That might not be exactly what they're called, but that is what they are. But Vanderpumpaholics can a lot of times be a Britney snark subreddit because when people post about Britney, the top comments are always about her weight, how she looks, or the fact that she should have left Jax a lot sooner.
That's so mean.
Instead of she's
right. But I bet on TikTok it is more that she's an abuse victim.
Yeah, although, I made that TikTok about Jackson Brittany codependent narcissist thing, and I got a lot of comments, and I'm gonna respond to them at some point, but I got a lot of comments being like, she was just in it to get famous. Like, she got together with Jax to be famous, and this is what she deserves.
I disagree.
I disagree. Like, I couldn't disagree more.
Yeah.
And yeah, so anyway, I did get plenty of comments like that.
Yeah, I just found that really interesting.
Somebody said she's just simple-minded. That was their whole argument. I'm like, she's simple-minded and
yeah, like I'm right. I mean,
I don't disagree.
right. It's like, and she has brown hair. Like, I would know that. Yeah, sure, but also,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, I just found it interesting when we had talked about Reddit last week, and I told you should get off of it. I still stick to it because I think like I like their deep dives. I like the way that they analyze things, but I personally can't handle the snark of Redditors. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
unkind.
I know. Your campaign to get me off of Reddit isn't going to work, but I do respect the persistence. But I will say that I think that I'm pretty self-aware of when I need to go off social media and when it's like creating brain rot in my brain, and I do it. And I don't have an issue taking Reddit off my phone for a little while and then going back on, and I do feel better when I do that. So like I hear you, and I know that there's a lot of negativity, and like reading negative shit after negative shit after negative shit is not good for your brain.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even when it's like negative stuff about pop culture.
Well, and I think it's important to just remember like those people would not speak that way face to face. There's, if you had a nuanced conversation with them, they'd probably be like, oh, you have a good point. You know what I mean? Like, it's just so easy to be that self-righteous and all that shit. So anyways, I'm following what happens with Scott Wolf and Kelly Wolf, and obviously hoping that whatever is going on, she gets whatever help it is that she needs to be the best parent and person that she wants to be. But it's definitely a train wreck to watch.
Yeah, totally. I think it's like there lacks the ability to, like what we're talking about online with Reddit and stuff. It's like people lack the ability to be sympathetic and critical of somebody.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really
good point. I can be critical of the way that she's acting, of her actions, of the way that she's potentially, maybe like potentially or allegedly like
exploiting
yes
them.
Yes, she's like exploiting her kids and her potentially her like relationship with her husband to feed a narrative. Like I can be critical of that and still say, but she seems unwell, and potentially with the right medicine or the right treatment, she would be feeling better soon, and then she wouldn't be acting this way.
Yeah.
Have you never done something that later you're embarrassed about and are like, that wasn't really me? I was acting out, I was being a little psycho.
No, never.
Yeah, I know. I've always been amazing. Yeah. So watch this space, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So I think it was last week, we talked a little bit about the Iran Israel conflict, and we were basically like, we don't really know much and it's embarrassing, so we will do our homework and come back. And so we have a little update. So if any of you are also like us, not sure exactly what the conflict is about and need a little help understanding what's going on, we've got some updates for you.
Okay. So when we had talked, last week, we decided to learn more, and I really thought that would be what we focused on this week, right? But then last night happened, and I'm like, well, shit, now there's more. because
Yeah.
we have decided to get involved. And this conflict is completely separate of what's going on with Israel, Palestine, Hamas, the Gaza Strip, all of that. This is a state to state conflict. And it's really hard to know what the intel is going to actually be, because up until last week, US intelligence had been that Iran was not building nuclear weapons. And then very quickly, Israeli intelligence was that they were, and they were days or weeks away. And then suddenly, US intelligence confirmed that. And I don't.
A tale as old as time.
Right. Like, I'm just thinking Iraq, weapons of mass destruction, and how sure we were about that. And we now obviously say that that was not accurate. And there was other motivation behind it. So I don't know what to make of it, but I do know that yesterday the US did go ahead and drop some missiles at 3 different locations that they believed had nuclear weapons being built. There had been a couple politicians on both sides of the aisle that had said that was not constitutional, because generally the president has to have Congress's approval to go to war. I mean, I wouldn't make that argument, just because every president has, when it's very targeted military action, they do not need Congress approval. And
Right.
we didn't ask for that of Barack Obama. So I don't know that that's the argument I would make about this. I'm very worried that Iran will retaliate, whether that's at US sites around the world, and what that could mean. I mean, the majority of Americans do not want us getting involved in a war in the Middle East.
No, in fact, from what I understand, a lot of people voted for Trump because he said that he wouldn't get in a war in the Middle East or another war at all, and was going to end all of these conflicts because he's such an amazing deal maker.
I thought the Ukraine-Russia thing, it was like, didn't he say 24, 48 hours he'd have that done?
Yeah, and he did. Right. It's done. He's amazing that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it can be difficult because you don't know what the true intentions are. They can say what the intentions are to our faces, but we don't actually know if they think that there are weapons of mass destruction. We don't know if they're saying that because it's an easy way to make it be like, listen, we don't have any other option to do this thing, even though there might be nefarious reasons that are unrelated to that. And with Trump, you almost have to assume that there's some other reason why he's wanting to do this, because he doesn't do anything that isn't for personal gain.
My concern is that the motivation is to just keep pounding this pro-Israel standpoint for evangelical Christian reasons that have nothing to do with anything for me that feels of real substance.
Yeah.
Is my concern.
Yeah. I don't think that sentiment, I think it would take a few generations for that sentiment to penetrate the whole US, considering I just found out about this sentiment yesterday and I literally live in the South. So it's not like this is a pervasive way of thinking for people that aren't super Christian, as far as I can tell.
I would agree, but I think that that's part of the problem with MAGA is evangelical Christians, obviously we know, tend to be MAGA, right? But then you also have MAGA that were not evangelical Christians. My concern is that they get into it and then they're reading more and watching more MAGA related.
But we're never going to get MAGA. Like,
no.
They're living in their own world. That's not who I'm worried about.
Yeah.
And I think my concern is that is so reckless and impulsive, and the way that he just shoots out a Truth Social post or talks in a one off, getting off his or getting on or off of his plane, talking about how, like, Iran better, make a deal. Otherwise, who knows what could happen, that kind of thing. And it's like, that kind of thing is going to escalate conflict. Saying those words will escalate conflict. They're going to be wondering, wait, is this guy actually thinking about bombing us, or is he just saying something random? We never fucking know with this guy. And that's, I think, my concern is that, like, he doesn't have any conflict resolution abilities. He's just firing at the hip at all times. And then he's got all of the people behind him with a strategy. And so they can easily manipulate him. That's how I see it. I see it as, like, these people behind him, these actual Christian nationalists, these actual racist, you know, Islamophobic idiots behind him are the people with the strategy, and he's just easy to manipulate, and they know he'll just, like, fire at the hip.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Look, I'm sure we could almost all agree that if we could go back, it would be great if we could just uninvent the nuclear weapon. But we can't, and I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, because you already have countries that have the capabilities and have them. Countries that do
Yeah.
not like us. Um,
Yeah.
so, and again, Iran had plenty of warning that this was coming. So I don't know why you think they would leave everything that they need in these areas they knew you were going to bomb anyway. I don't know. It's just, I'm definitely concerned about what happens next.
Yeah, like, I think one of the things that has made me sick watching what's going on over there is when he said on Truth Social, like, everybody in Tehran should get out. And then people were trying to evacuate, but it's like, there are, like, so many people that live in Tehran. It's one of the biggest cities in the world, I think.
Yeah.
Like New York, LA, like Mexico City, like these huge, vast cities, I think, are still not even as big. Are you looking up how many people live there?
No, I was looking up, but I was looking up, like, where they were trying to get to, like, in order to get out.
Yeah, and, like, all the roads are, like, blocked up because there aren't a ton of ways to get out of there. And it's like all of these people are just frantically trying to leave with whatever they can fit in their car and getting stuck in these traffic jams, wondering if they're about to get bombed. And it's just like, that's just the kind of chaos that this world just does not need right now.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I don't, again, I think, hold on, let me get back to Riverside. Okay. I think the other thing that scares me is, I just think, I think about when my husband joined the Army, and it was 2000, and that was his way to be able to afford college and, those kinds of things, and had no way to know that 9 months after he joined, the Twin Towers would fall. And
Yeah.
holy fuck, it's time to go to war. These are babies that get sent over there.
I know. On PodSave, I think they were talking about how in LA all the Marines are there, and they were like, you forget how young these kids are.
They're babies. They are babies, that just makes me emotional. On Veterans Day, there was a news organization that asked people to post pictures of their time in the service, and my husband posted a picture, and he, like, captioned it, like, deuces, and he's, like, throwing up, and it's him and another guy, and they're clearly in Iraq, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, God, this looks like our son.
I know.
This is a baby, like, and I just hope we're being really cognizant of what the consequences can be. I wish that it's moments like this when I think it becomes so crystal clear how important it is to have good leadership.
Yeah.
And it's really scary when
Yeah.
we have someone like this. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't even have to watch him last night. Like, I heard he was going to talk at 10 o'clock. And my husband's like, I don't think you should watch. I'm like, I don't think I need to, because I guarantee he's just going to say things like, this was the best bombing of all time. Like, of all the bombings, this was spectacular. And that was essentially how it felt like it
What he
really
said.
went. Yeah, like, and it was just, God, you're a dick.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll leave it at that. The good leadership. This country deserves good leadership. Our cities deserve good leadership. People like Tim Walz,
Yeah.
who rose above all of the petty bullshit. Trump saying that he wasn't going to call him because he's, I can't even remember what he said, an incompetent governor or something like that, and all of that kind of stuff. And it's like, these are human beings, these are people. He's so disconnected from like empathy and compassion. It's pathological.
It really is. It really, really is. And it's just disturbing and sad. And there's definitely plenty of people that voted for him because they wanted this America first, and us deciding to get involved with Iran really on behalf of Israel is not very America first.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I know. Well, we'll keep you guys updated. I wanted to actually bring up one last thing.
Okay.
So this week, I believe on Thursday, there's a New York City mayor race.
Oh.
There's an election. And we're trying to vote out that POS Cuomo.
Yeah.
So I just want to quickly run through what's going on. If you live in New York City, you should definitely go vote. Like, there are elections here in Charlotte in September. Okay. There are elections this year happening. People need to know. I didn't know about that election until I went to an event the other night. And I like hang out with the Democrats. I like hang out with people who are politically engaged, and nobody's talking about this. So, make sure that you know when elections are coming up in your area.
Yes.
But there's a mayoral race. So it's.
Now, he's not the current mayor.
No, but he's just running.
Right.
These are the primary candidates: Cuomo, Zoran Mamdani, and Brad Lander. And I heard Zoran, I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but Zoran Mamdani on Pod Save America.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he did an interview and it was so good. And he's one of ours. He's a AOC, like, for the people. He talks about a bunch of different things that he wants to do to make New York City an affordable place to live for working class people, and a place that's easier to live for working class people, including improving public transportation and all that kind of stuff. And he does not, as far as I know, does not take money from like big super PACs or lobbyists or anything like that. Like, he is homegrown, born and raised, I think, Brooklyn or Queens or something like that. And his parents were immigrants from, I'm not going to say from because I actually don't remember. But his parents are immigrants. He's not white.
Okay.
And so he talks about how. So let me just read a little bit of this article because I don't remember off the top of my head. But Queens Assembly member Zoran Mamdani, a Democratic socialist who is consistently polling in second place, held an event in Astoria to slam former Governor Andrew Cuomo, the frontrunner, over a super PAC supporting his campaign, known as Fix the City. Mamdani charged the wealthy contributors, including donors to President Trump and real estate bigwigs, as are pouring millions of dollars into Cuomo's super PAC because they are afraid of his pledges to raise taxes on the wealthy and freeze rent increases for stabilized tenants. This is one of the things he's running on, is stabilizing rents.
Okay.
He said, these are billionaires who are giving hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars to Andrew Cuomo precisely. They know that we are going to tax them to make life a little bit more affordable here in the most expensive city in the United States. They are giving Andrew Cuomo unprecedented amounts of money because they know we are going to stand up to the Trump administration that they helped deliver. Mamdani's remarks come after Politico reported that Fix the City has now raised $24 million, 1/3 of which came from billionaire former mayor Michael Bloomberg, who endorsed Cuomo last week. So basically, like, this is a guy that runs with the billionaires, who has vested interests in making sure that the billionaires' lives are made easier. They're funding his campaign, and he needs to lose. Zoran has already proven a lot of his ideas in making policies that have worked, and he's really excited to do that in New York City. So go out and vote.
So this article that I see on him says that Mamdani came to the U.S. at 7 years old from Uganda, where he was born to parents of Indian descent. His father is a political scientist. His mother is an Oscar-nominated director. He's a Democratic socialist endorsed by Bernie Sanders and AOC. He's been outspoken on the Gaza war, which he views as genocide, and is unrestrained in his criticism of Trump, who he calls an authoritarian. He's equally as scathing about the Democratic Party, which he tells me has betrayed the people of New York. He is an
Yep.
unashamed progressive Muslim immigrant snapping at the heels of the ultimate Democratic machine politician, the thrice elected governor Cuomo. So yeah, I mean, it'll be really interesting. It would be
Yep.
amazing if he could pull this out. Yeah, get out there and vote.
Yeah. People are voting early. I saw some of my friends from New York City are posting their little I voted early stickers and stuff. So I love to see it. One of my friends was like, it took 15 minutes. I was in and out. It was so easy. Go vote. You can do it early. These are the places.
You
And
have
we love to see
lived
it.
everywhere.
Yeah, I know. I've moved around a
I
lot.
mean, my God, the other day you're like, yeah, I remember when I lived in Mexico. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah. Cass, I've moved at least every 3 years or 4 years since I left home because I went to college, but I didn't go to that same college all 4 years. I went to multiple different colleges. So I've been on the go, which is part of the reason why Zach is like, are you sure this isn't some sort of crazy defense mechanism that you have that you just want to like leave now that we're here? Which who knows? Not my problem.
I feel like you should give Florida a chance. We're great down here. Don't listen.
Yeah, you have so many amazing things to say about
It's
it.
so great. I mean, if
Yeah.
you ignore our politics, our school, our medical
Weather.
system, our weather, I mean, if you ignore all of that, we have some nice beaches.
Uh-huh.
You can't get in the water because we're the shark attack capital of the world. You can't swim in our rivers because we have alligators and bull sharks in them. But I'm here.
Yeah, but the thing is you're gonna leave.
That is the goal.
Yeah, so I just can't be bothered to like make the whole move down there. If you're gonna leave, you're just gonna come up to where we are, obviously.
Well, yeah, clearly.
Yeah. There was an alligator attack at a lake here in North Carolina.
What? Was everybody okay?
I think so. The girl, it was a 12-year-old girl, I think, that got bit. She was like, something bit me.
Well, I mean, the fact that she was able to say that's not how it goes down here. It's just,
Yeah.
yeah, you're just
I guess it let her go. I don't know. I think she's okay. I don't think she passed away or anything, but
she probably, usually the bite will happen if it's not attacking to kill you. It's usually because it was accidentally stepped on. Because they come so close to the shore, but they're laying on the bottom. So,
oh my God, that's so scary. It gives me a pit in my stomach.
yeah, I mean, you cannot jump into a body of water down here. You have to assume that there's something in it.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next.
Yeah, the Valley next week. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, it's not really a whole week away. We'll see you on Wednesday for our Valley recap. And until then,
have a good week.
Stay informed, stay resistant, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.